Hello and welcome, my friends and viewers, to this week's episode of Legendlore. Here we sit and talk about 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons, specifically monsters, characters, gods, magic items, adventures, and many more, all in the hopes of educating new dungeon masters and players alike, and providing both advice and ideas for you guys to use at your tables. This week we will be talking about one of my favorite gods in the Forgotten Realms, Cyric, the god of lies. Cyric is a god with a massive portfolio of aspects, including strife, deception, conflict, murder, as well as lies, intrigue, and illusion. For lack of a better word, he's a chaos goblin, and he enjoys reveling in the madness that he causes, never really thinking about the consequences for himself or anyone else. His divine symbol is a jawless skull behind a black and purple sunburst, and he also goes by the names Nazir and the far more complicated Sirhiva Tizangpo, a name belonging to the unexplored Gugari tribes. Cyric was once a mortal man before he was a god, born in the city of Zentil Keep, and living life as a general scoundrel. After he tried and failed to steal an artifact known as the Ring of Winter, he was imprisoned by the frost giants who were guarding the ring, before being sprung by a party led by another then mortal and eventual god, Celeborn Lionsbane. The two were the only ones who managed to escape the wrath of the giants, and over time came to form a new party with various other adventurers, eventually meeting up with a very powerful wizard named Midnight. Midnight, in truth, was the next mortal chosen to assume the mantle of Mystra, the goddess of magic and mystery within the Forgotten Realms, who will also in time receive their own video. Eventually, Midnight was confronted with her destiny to become the new goddess of magic, but she did not enjoy her new place for long, as Cyric, urged by the dark goddess Shar, slew her, and was believed to have stolen her divinity for himself. Mystra's death caused the weave of magic itself to collapse, allowing Shar to fill this new magical void with her own power, and enacting an age of horror, death, and chaos known as the Spell Plague. This would also not be Cyric's only godly assassination, as later on he would kill Lyra, the goddess of deception and illusion, to usurp her power and domains for himself. He would also go on to release the entity known as Keswick the Chaos Hound and set him upon the god Mask, who I've covered in a previous video, as well as create a powerful tome known as the Serenishad, capable of stealing the portfolios of the gods who read it. The book is said to claim Cyric as the one true god, a boast made in the hopes of driving other gods to read it out of pride or anger, and thus losing precious shards of their power as a result. But this is still a small gleaning over the chaos that Cyric set upon the world, and for his actions he was captured and imprisoned by the gods Lathander, Tyr, and Suni, shackled for 1,000 years in a plane of existence known as the Supreme Throne. When it comes to using Cyric in-game, my approach to using him as a character is to have him be very similar to Loki of Norse mythology. I even tweaked his backstory a little bit, as well as the backstory of other gods to fit it. But Cyric sees chaos as its own end when he doesn't have a specific goal in mind. However, I personally believe that Cyric can see every single lie that a person tells, and thusly can see the consequences of those lies as well as how they butterfly effect throughout the world, almost as if he bears some semblance of prophetic cognition. So if Cyric wants something to go a certain way, he can mold and forge the lies he needs to make sure that that occurrence happens. He'd have some cultists who go around burning the countryside and spreading general physical mayhem, but then there are his more subtle and true believers who use deceit, omission, and secrecy to their own benefit as well as his. Conniving advisors in court, spies who hold back information from their employers, and of course your good old thieving rogues who steal things just right when they're needed the most by their original owner. In terms of his enemies and allies, Cyric has none for the latter and an overwhelming amount for the former. Suni, Bane, Baal, Lathander, Tyr, Celeborn, and Mystra have all been victims of his machinations and rise to power, and so they hold very little love for him and seek to undermine his efforts at every opportunity. The only gods that seem willing to interact at all with Cyric are Shar and Mask, Shar having been the one to manipulate him into assassinating Mystra, and Mask being a sort of rival for the aspects of intrigue, thievery, and deception. Mask would also very much enjoy getting Cyric back for setting Keswick the Hound on him, an act that nearly killed the god of thieves. The classes that I like to align with Cyric are Zealot and Wild Magic Barbarians, all manner of bards, paladins, warlocks, rangers, and of course rogues, Trickery, Death, Grave, Knowledge, and Twilight Clerics, Moon, Spores, Dreams, and Twilight Circle Druids, Echo Knight and Arcane Archer Fighters, Shadow, Long Death, and Mercy Monks, Shadow, Divine Soul, Clockwork Soul, and Aberrant Mind Sorcerers, and Illusion, Enchantment, Chronoturgy, and Divination Wizards. I've included a few character concepts that I've come up with that you guys can use in your game, either as PCs or NPCs. an illusionist wizard who has to put up with struggle and strife for all of his life before learning how to use magic, and thus uses illusions and enchantment alike to mold other people's perception of him. Cyric aids him in this endeavor out of personal entertainment and seeing a small bit of himself within the character. And for the second one, we have a character seeking to become a member of the Ancient Order to Cyric, who use theft, assassination, and manipulation of information to write history as they see fit. Great heroes die before their time, magical items that can turn the tide of a war are stolen, and letters containing the discovery of an ambush never find their way to the general's ears. Finally, for someone that would be going against Cyric, we have a once knowledge cleric who served Mystra seeks vengeance against the Lord of Lies for slaying her god, which stripped them of their own power. Now they have risen to become a divination wizard, intent on exposing all of the lies that Cyric would see to rule the world. These are just a few examples, but think of characters that either wish to exploit deception to their benefit, if they want Cyric to be a patron of theirs, or expose his lies so that people may not fall to danger because of them, if you wish for Cyric to be a foil or villain for your character. Now for our homebrew magic item. This time we've got two. One that is actually meant to be used by players, and another that I feel would be better to use as a plot device rather than a useful artifact. First, we have the Blade of Lies, the blade that Cyric stole from Kelemvor and used to kill Mystra to incite the spell plague. Being in Cyric's possession for so long and infused with the blood of the goddess of magic, this item is able to assume the form of a blade best suited for the wielder, such as a greatsword for a fighter, a dagger for a rogue, a short sword for a ranger, and so on. All attack and damage rolls get a +3 bonus to them, and the weapon deals an additional 1d6 psychic damage on a successful hit. When attuned to the blade, the wielder is subject to a mixture of chaos and magic within the blade, and at the start of their turn in any combat must roll on the Wild Magic Sorcerer's magic table, for an effect that immediately takes place before their turn starts. The blade also allows the wielder to cast the spell Chaos Bolt at will, and the spells Modify Memory and Gift of Gab once per long rest. And then we have our second item, which is the great holy tome of Cyric that he wrote himself, the Serenishad. It is said that mortals who read its pages go mad, while gods who read its pages lose parts of their divine power to Cyric himself. This was the case with the god Mask, who lost a part of his divinity upon looking on its pages. A good idea for Dungeon Masters is to use this book to explain the sudden depowering of many gods throughout the land, as someone has been taking this book to all the temples of each of the gods and forcing the high priest to look upon its pages, stealing all of the divine power from them, and by proxy, their god. For the Blade of Lies, the stat block is included in the description below. I personally always found that the gods who were once mortal but ascended to divinity to be the most interesting out of all of them, and Cyric himself has quickly grown to be a character that bears a lot of unexplored nuance, especially since he and many of the other gods had such a connection during their mortal lives. If you guys like these videos and want to see more, please click the subscribe button and press the bell icon in the corner so as to be notified of the next Legendlore. If you guys would like to support me further, please follow me on social media and check out some of the pay what you want homebrew content I've created down below. And please comment how you guys have used or encountered Cyric at your table, as well as what kind of things you guys want me to cover in future videos. Until then, I'll see you guys next time.